Hello and welcome to the Resilient Lineage podcast, where we reflect on the past, anticipate the future, and discover what God is up to today. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Milo. And we're doing things a little bit different today.
I know. It's super exciting.
And moving forward. So for those of you that have been following the podcast for a while, thank you. We appreciate each one of you. So we got a bunch of new listeners to the podcast, which we're excited about. It's always good to have new folks checking out the podcast. We're redoing the formatting on some things. So you're going to notice a new song. And the reason for that is that we have transitioned our podcast to not just include audio, but to also have
video.
And so if you're listening to us, keep listening. That's great. But by moving to video, it means we're going to be able to kind of do some things a little bit differently that we haven't been able to do before. Namely, we're going to be able to kind of share with you a lot of the details that we share in the podcast. We're actually going to not just tell you, but we're going to be able to show you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of demanded a different format. And because we're going to have that format on YouTube, we had to pick a different song because the song we were using kept getting flagged by YouTube, even though YouTube gave us that song to use. So anyway, we're trying to clean all of that out. We're doing a new series.
I'm so hyped for this, you guys.
And you've been wanting to do this for quite a while. But before we get into all that, I want to just highlight two messages that I saw over the last week.
Yeah.
One was this. This is an email we got from Beth, and she asked us not to share her last name, which is fine. She said, wow, this one I needed. It's so easy to try to make things happen. So this is in reference to the FOMO episode. She said, several times in the past year, there have been events to which I didn't receive an invitation, and that hurt a bit. This episode reminds me to keep my hands off of making things happen and wait for God's plan and timing in all areas. In the meantime, I'm here to serve those in my circle. So Beth, we're proud of you.
Yeah, thank you for leaving that for us.
Yeah, so
it's very encouraging.
She sent us that email, which was fantastic. And then this comes from Facebook. So this was on our Resilient Lineage Facebook page, which if you're not following, go follow that.
Yeah.
We posted a link, and then Larry left this link, and it's my Uncle Larry. So this is my mom's brother. He said, hey, fam, I was driving the other day listening to the first podcast in this series, and it inspired me to pull over and reflect deeply on the content. I highly recommend you tune into this series and the others as well. But this one truly ignited my desire for more. How great is that?
I love that.
So we want you to know that when you send us these messages, they are a massive encouragement to us. And so thank you for doing that. Okay.
This series, I have I don't know. I think since March, I've been we should do this.
It was way before that.
So yeah.
It was like 2 weeks into you kind of diving into this material. So that would have been October?
Oh, true.
Yeah.
True.
So this has been boiling within you for 9 months. And we finally, some of it was driven by schedule. Some of it was driven by, we had a bunch of other episodes that we wanted to do first.
And interviews. And we didn't want to we wanted to just sit down and do this series and not have it interrupted.
Yeah.
And just hammer it and let this flow.
And we thought this would be a good series to start the video. If we were going to move to video, which we finally made that decision, this would be a good series to initiate all of that with. So there's a variety of reasons what led us up to this. Okay, leading up to this, kind of a forward, like a book has a forward, here's some things to keep in mind as you get ready, was our 2 episodes with
Pastor Lance Bacon.
Yeah,
if you haven't listened to the first 2 episodes, stop this. I don't care what you're doing. Turn this off and go listen to the last 2 episodes. It's a part 1 and a part 2.
It's really broad.
Yes.
We kind of go all over the place. And I think we intended it for it to be way more focused. But
it ended up being a really good conversation.
Because he was a pastor, I'm a pastor. We kind of have other things burning on our souls.
Same a different military background, but still.
He's a Marine and a journalist and a professor
and an author.
A pastor and an author and all kinds of things. So you're going to want to go back and listen to those episodes with Lance. So we share that to say we've kind of had a soft start to this.
Yes.
With those 2 episodes. But really what we're looking at with this series and this kind of big idea is how can we as Christians, we're called to live a life of worship. Mm-hmm. How do we orient our lives in worship towards God in a way that it has intention and purpose and meaning behind it? Like, it's not just, I think some people, when they think of worship, it's I go to a place on Sundays, there's music played, sometimes that music is new, sometimes that music is old, sometimes there's scripture reading, there's all of these other things, which is, that can be worship. But what we're talking about is something different than that. And this comes to this idea of tabernacle. Yes. And looking at the tabernacle that God built for Israel, the instructions he gave them on how he wants them to step forward in worship of him. And that, so it's not about, the music, and it's not about the order of service and where you find yourselves on Sunday. It's really about what is the orientation of your entire life, and so, in a way that cultivates this right relationship with the Lord.
That's good.
And so this series, that's kind of what we're hanging on to, because I think it would be very easy just to turn this into a Bible study on the tabernacle, which is not what we're interested in. Mm-hmm. There's other people that have done that. As it relates to our podcast, Resilient Soul, right? How do we build a resilient lineage? How do we become, from one generation to the next generation, how do we orient our lives in a manner, in a way that those that are coming after us can kind of see the pattern of living that we've lived and go, I want that. Yeah. Right. So this very, like you said at the beginning, we're reflecting on the past. We're just going like 6,000 years back, like that far in the past. Anticipating the future, right? This idea that if we take these lessons from back there and we orient our lives towards, this future that the Lord has for us. Okay, well then what are the lessons for today? How do I step into a life of worship today?
That's good.
So that's kind of the big idea for this series, is we're going to look at this tabernacle as a way to kind of orient the whole of our lives in worship towards God. The kind of the question that's lingering in our minds as we go through each of these episodes, or as what did you say it was your favorite word?
I love the word interrogative. First grade me, we're going through, I don't even remember the other ones, and that's probably really bad. But you have interrogative is like the question mark, and there's another one that starts with an E for the exclamation mark. I don't even know. Yeah. Anyway. And I learned how to spell it in the first grade. And I remember spelling it out to Mom. And Mom knows this is true. She's probably nodding her head right now. And I spelled it right. She was so proud of me. She's like, that's a college word, Olivia. I was like,
look at that.
I'm a genius. Yeah. I'm the head of my time. Still in my car seat.
Still in your booster seat.
Butterflies on that booster seat.
So one of the things I like to do when we wrestle with this series, and I think really good curriculum or really good thoughts are, like when you read a good book, it's because there's one question they're persistently trying to answer as they move
forward.
Yeah. So what we're doing, we're using what we call an interrogative statement, right? And do you want to read the question that we're asking? Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to say this as meaningful as I can.
Okay. It's a college word.
Let me get that on. Yeah. Okay. How does the tabernacle teach us to be pointed and moving toward a life that is in right relationship with God? It is an aimed focus that we persistently move towards.
And what we'll see, we're going to see this here in a bit, the tabernacle has these layers to it that lead to intimacy with the Lord.
And you might be listening and be like, okay, I know a tabernacle is in the Bible, but know nothing about it. At the beginning of the year, I thought the same thing. But because of the student ministry, this kind of helped me get this idea to do this on this podcast of exploring the tabernacle as a spiritual formation model. So that's kind of what we're going to go for. So each episode is going to go through a different place of the tabernacle.
Yeah, and looking at the different elements that are in there and what that teaches us about the way we need to be posturing our lives.
And ordering our lives.
Because here's the problem that I see. I think a lot of people, there's sort of I'm going to share, as I say, kind of two extremes.
Yeah.
So on the one extreme, when it comes to orienting our lives towards God, is that people embrace sort of a very high tradition or liturgical or legalistic. And those are all different things. But they think if I engage in these activities, I've oriented my life in worship, right? So that's one end. So it's this very ordered way of doing things. And that could look like a wide variety of things. And then on the other end of the spectrum are folks that maybe they were raised with that, and maybe they were never raised in the church. They don't really know what to do. And so they're kind of just picking what they want to do or what feels right or what feels good or what feels comfortable or, really a lot of it leans towards their feelings. It leans towards the measure of enjoyment they're getting out of the experience. And so I think what that's cultivated is in both of those camps. And this could be for the person who shows up every time the door is open, or the person who's sitting on their couch and every now and then they watch a sermon on YouTube and they have their Christian music playlist and they consider themselves a Christian. Either one. So I'm kind of speaking to both camps, right? And think of those as like kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, is that it can lead to a casual relationship with God because the posture of the heart isn't oriented the way the Lord has designed for us to be oriented. Yeah. And so it leads to, this buffet type Christianity. I lean in towards the fads of things. I lean in towards presenting a particular image that I want people to think as it relates to my faith. And so it all becomes incredibly superficial in its approach. And I think, those of that would be on that like legalistic, liturgical, traditional camp of things. They would look across the fence on those that are kind of like, they watch, like I said, they're going to church on the couch type thing. And they're like, they shouldn't be doing that. They should really be in a local church. And then those over here are looking at it and going like, wow, they judge one another and they judge even their own activities as legitimate because of what they perceive as the image or the vibe that they're stepping into in all of this. And what I would argue is, as we going to go through this Tabernacle series, you don't get a pick what you do. Particularly as we begin with this, right? Was where all of this begins. The first instruction that the Lord lays out for how this tabernacle is to be built, it's an incredibly detailed series of descriptions, and it begins with this outer gate. Okay, before we get into all that though, because I know you're going to kind of unpack a lot of that for us. Let's talk about backstory, because I think it's important to put all of this in the context of where Israel has been. So Israel had been, so you have Father Abraham. God makes a promise to Abraham, says, I'm going to bless you in generations upon generations, and the world is going to be blessed because of you. Okay, so that's Abraham. Then you have, he has Jacob and Esau. Jacob has 12 sons. Those 12 sons end up in Egypt. Over time, they end up enslaved in Egypt for, I think it's 400 years. So over those 400 years, in Exodus 1, verse 8, it says, there came a time when there was a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. Joseph was one of the sons. And Joseph had saved the Egyptian empire from utter collapse because God had given him understanding as to what was going to be coming. Okay. So over 400 years, Israel ends up slipping into this enslavement by the Egyptians, and then they cry out to God. That's when Moses comes in, and then Moses, delivers. God uses Moses to deliver Israel out of Egypt. So they are a people, they don't have a formal way of worshiping God. In fact, God is just the God of Abraham. God of Jacob, right? There's these stories, but they don't have any way of organizing themselves. They don't have a particular land. They are a tribe of people at best. That's it. Okay, so they come out of Egypt as slaves. They go through the Red Sea, right? God parts the Red Sea. And, oftentimes it's in Christian tradition, we would say that's their baptism, right? They're free from Israel, and now they're stepping into the life that God has for them. So they cross the Red Sea, they enter into this wilderness experience where they have to learn to trust God. So God provides the manna in the morning, quail at night to meet their physical needs. So every day God's meeting their needs, but they still don't know how to worship God. They don't know how to organize themselves. They don't know what does it mean to govern themselves. None of that has been established yet. So it's from the wilderness, or in the wilderness then, that God leads them to Mount Sinai. And it's on the Mount Sinai that famously God gives Moses the 10 Commandments. It's also at Mount Sinai that Israel slips into idolatry.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things that happen at Sinai. Part of that law that Moses gets, in addition to the 10 Commandments, is the ceremonial laws, the civil laws, the moral laws that they are to organize themselves by. In that is how the tabernacle is to be constructed. So this becomes the way Israel is going to worship God. Now, you got to consider, these are people who have never worshiped God before. They don't know what that looks like. Yeah. They don't know what right is as it comes to worshiping God. And so all they know is what they've seen in Egypt. How did the Egyptians worship their gods? Who were their gods? What was their relationship with their gods? What were the relationships between the gods with one another, right? It was very paganistic, polytheistic worldview of what worship was supposed to be. And God goes, nope, I'm going to clarify for you what worship is. And it begins with this idea of, let's talk about the place and how you're going to organize this place to worship me. So we're going to talk about, today we're talking about the gate. The gate. And then we're going to talk about the outer court.
The holy place, and then the Holy of Holies.
The holy place and the Holy of Holies and the different things that are in there. Okay, so let's talk about this outer wall, because there's a boundary that surrounds this place and the gate. You want to kind of walk us through those details?
So basically, for the gate of the court. So, okay, imagine it's like a big rectangle. If you're looking at the image, you can see what I'm doing with my hands. So, and it's kind of divided into sections, I'd say. So the outer court, right? The whole perimeter of the entire tabernacle. The length of it is 100 cubits, which is approximately 150 feet long. The width is 50 cubits, which is 75 feet long. And then the height of it is 5 cubits, which is around 8 feet high. But, it's not made out of, wood walls. It's not a big, stone wall. It's made out of, curtains. But how the sides were kind of put together was, it's not hanging on one big curtain rod all the way around. So, someone could just, peek and pull the curtains apart and sneak in. Along the sides where, the curtains meet, there's a bunch of little hoops.
Well, first of all, there's hoops, and then there's a column between the curtains.
For I guess extra protection. So also
for stability.
Yeah.
So
there's only one way into the tabernacle, and it's through the gate. And on the gate it's not just this wooden thing or this plain curtain. It is intricately woven. And the Lord gives specific instruction on how it's supposed to look. And even all the other curtains around the whole tabernacle. And there are 3 main colors on the gate. It is blue, it is scarlet, and what's the last one? Purple. And so
if you're walking around this, you know where the tabernacle is, because not only is there specific dimensions and things like that for the tabernacle, but there's a very specific location it's supposed to be.
Yes.
It is at the center of Israel's activities. So all of the tribes have equal distance to the tabernacle. And then the gate always faces the east.
Where the sun rises?
And so the gate faces the east, which means you're entering, you're facing west. And so and because it's portable, right?
Yeah.
The intent is that where they are setting up isn't where they're going to call home. So they're going to be moving from place to place to place to place. And so these 60 posts, think of it like kind of like I don't want to say circus because that trivializes it, and I don't want to trivialize it. But everything is designed to be stable when it's placed, but to be transportable as well. And so like there's these 60 posts that are made of acacia wood overlaid with bronze, but then the base itself is made of bronze.
Yeah.
And then that's, so there's this design that God gives them that is intended to say, like, this is a worship that is supposed to be going with you. It moves with you as you move towards my promised land, towards the promise I have for you.
That's good.
And so the design of all of this is not just to look nice, not just to be functional. It's this really wonderful form and function. Particularly when it comes to all of the symbolism that exists.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the gate and the colors why these 3 colors and what they would have meant in that ancient world, right? Of blue, purple, and scarlet.
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so blue. So it signifies his divine origin. So if you kind of like step back and put yourself back in the day. So in Egypt, gods were associated with nature. And like I could go down a whole rabbit hole, but like there was always a god for like a river and like for a sun and for a moon and for animals. And it's very polytheistic, like you said. So, but here is where Israel has to kind of like leave that mindset of there's these individual kinds of gods, but there's one God who created all of that. And there's no other God that functions over the river or over nature or over animals. It's him. So Israel has to understand that God is not a created thing. Rather, God is the creator of all things. So his divine origin is unlike any other God they would have known.
So, and I think that's important. And why the color blue?
Because of the sky.
Because of the sky and
the water.
And the water, right? So the 2 biggest bodies they could think of. What color are they? They're blue.
Blue.
And so the Lord says that represents my creation. The biggest things that humans could imagine at that time, that color represents that aspect of who I am.
Yeah.
That I am the creator. So when you see that gate, and this, like you said, this is the only way to enter into that place of worship. And I see that blue, which is a distinct blue.
Yeah.
Right? These are not common colors. People aren't going to the Gap and going like, oh, I'd like a blue shirt, a purple shirt, a scarlet
Gap
shirt.
goes crazy.
Right? I don't know. What are stores today? I don't even know.
Let's roll with it. I like this intergenerational conversation.
Oh yeah, they're not finding. Fashion isn't really a thing back then, right? So to dye things requires specific artisans to do very specific things, and to access deeply limited resources to accomplish that. So when somebody sees the color blue, particularly in the context of moving towards a worship, it's like, oh, it's telling you something.
Yeah.
This means something significant. This is a significant symbol about the God you are interacting with. This is the creator God, not a creator, the creator of the 2 biggest things you've ever imagined in your lives, which is the sky and the waters. He's the creator. And if he's the creator of those 2 ginormous things, then he's the creator of all things. And so it's this, what's called chiasm, where you create these large examples on either ends, and then everything in between it's applied to that.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
blue.
Okay, so that's the blue piece. So an Israeli, when you see the temple and you see that blue, it's like, okay, God's our creator.
Yeah.
Second
is purple, which would represent his kingship. Now, at this time, the only like authority, I guess, that was over Israel at the time had been like Egyptian kings and rulers and pharaohs, which I guess are all the same thing. But like they were only ruled by power and oppression. And so the purple at the gate signify that God is their true king and not a pharaoh. So it had to reorient their understanding or authority, that no longer being enslaved to tyranny, but submitted to a just and covenantal king. And kind of like what you were going back to is like God is establishing what worship looks like in right relationship with the Jews look like, because they don't know. The only thing that they're used to is like what the Egyptians would have instilled in them. So to like kind of, I mean, all of us go through that at some point where there's things in our lives that we commit to or we're used to, and like that's the only thing we know about how to do it, where God has to step in and be like, no, we need to reestablish what this looks like, because there's something I need to do in here, but it cannot look the way it's used to looking. Okay, so last is the scarlet. And I think this is one of the most powerful, I guess. The blue and the scarlet are probably like the two most pungent colors on there.
Well, and again, the scarlet color would have been common for that. It's common throughout human history,
right,
to attribute, because scarlet was one of the most difficult colors to get.
Yeah.
Or not scarlet, purple. One of the most difficult colors to get, because... So therefore, it was always attributed with royalty because of the rarity in which it was used.
That's good. So last is scarlet, which would have represented his authority. And so for Israel, scarlet would have recalled the bloody water in the Nile, and like the plagues and the Passover with the lamb's blood, and now sacrifice. Because if you don't know, the tabernacle, once you get through the gate, we're going to talk about this next week, there's going to be an altar of sacrifice. And like you have to lay down flesh. And it's a very messy, violent, like painful.
Life is lost.
Yeah.
And I think that's where so if the blue is about God being creator, the purple is about him being king, then the scarlet is about his authority. Like he is the author. He has authority over life.
Yeah.
So he gets to pick who lives and who dies, and the way to order your life, right? Because there's a psalm that says, "The life is in the blood." The idea that all of life, has blood flowing through it, and so when you see that red, it's like, okay, this represents all the things you talked about, and there's an authority over what is appropriate sacrifice. There's authority over what is inappropriate sacrifice. Yeah. What does right look like in that context? How are we to live our lives? Paul would say in the New Testament, offer your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable act of worship, right? Yeah. It's this idea that I'm saying God is the ultimate authority over these things. So if you're an Israeli and you see that gate, again, it's the only way to enter in. There's only one way. So there's only one way into this entrance of worship, then I have to, and I would say this is where, with people's thinking about who God is, like what are the things we should know about God and his role in our life? Well, the first few things are this. You need to know he's your creator. Second, you need to know he's the king. There's no, higher ruler than him. And he's not just a king without authority. He has authority, right? He is the ultimate authority. All justice rests with him.
That's good.
There's no other governing body that he has to appeal to. And so I think which all of those are things that are being deeply challenged in our days. Like, so, pay attention to the larger cultural conversation about creation. Do we live in a culture that encourages us to think about God as creator, or is it some natural series of events and that don't have any, we don't have any responsibility to, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, wait a minute, if God is creator, then that makes me created, which then leads to, that means he has authority over my life. Well, what kind of authority is that? What's the authority that a king has? So these things are deeply intertwined. And for the Israelite that would have been walking towards this, they would have been thinking, okay, this is telling me bare bones who this God is.
Yeah.
Which is different than what they would have seen before all of this.
And like you could go back, like this isn't God just like showing him who he is now, like delivering them from Egypt and all of the plagues. Like I was in class one day, and in two of my classes they brought this up, how each of the plague kind of dismantles one of the gods that they worshiped. Like each specific one, right? They worshiped the sun. What happened? The day went dark. Like, and the river, and it turned to blood. Yeah. So like God, like kind of was like, you thought, like, that's me. I'm the ruler over this. Yeah. And then, you know, they got manna from the wilderness. Like God was giving them like daily portions. And we talked about that, and like delivering them like through the sea. So God has proved himself, I think, who he is.
I think you could argue what God has demonstrated is power.
Yeah.
But what he's inviting them into
is relationship. And I think we live in a time where people are driven by power. Yeah.
I want to see power. I want to experience power. You're going to have to prove to me through power. And the orientation that God has is like, no. Because he, you know, hypothetically, let's say he doesn't do any of this. So he's been faithful to Israel in demonstrating his power and all these things. Moses goes up onto the mountain, and he's gone a little bit longer than what people are comfortable with. And what do they end up doing?
Going back.
They end up worshiping an idol.
Yeah.
They end up, you know, forming a calf out of gold and worshiping that. So the demonstration of power is not enough to convince the heart that God is the God who we should worship. And so through the tabernacle, the Lord says, I'm drawing you into a relationship, a way of orienting itself. Now, what does that mean for the Christian life? And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some virtues that are cultivated in our lives by stepping into these different elements, right? And we're picking the topic of virtue because if you didn't have a chance to listen to our 4th of July episode, which was, you know, we talked about what does it mean to live a life of virtue, to live you know, we say pursuit of happiness in America, but is that really what it means? It's better to understand as the pursuit of virtue. And so what does it look like to cultivate different virtues I have to cultivate these virtues in my life in order for me to move into intimacy with the Lord, or I have to let the Lord cultivate that virtue in my life. So the first virtue is the virtue of prudence.
So why'd you choose prudence?
Okay, so there's 4 cardinal virtues, and I'm not going to get into what all those things are, but the word cardinal it means to pivot or hinge, and these are virtues that in church history we say these 4 virtues sort of hinge. Everything else kind of comes off of those 4 virtues, and so if you can kind of master those 4, you'll start mastering a lot of other virtues in your life. And so one of those is prudence. And now let me define our terms. What do we mean by prudence? Prudence enables us to discern the appropriate course of action in any situation and to choose the right means to achieve good. It is practical wisdom and sound judgment. So prudence is this marrying of not do I just know the right thing to do, but I'm choosing to do the right thing. And so it's the combination of 2 things. Okay, why is that applicable to this context? Because Israel can know where the gate is. They can know there's only one way to enter into worship of the Lord. They can see the boundary. They can do all of these things, but prudence says, therefore, I shouldn't be climbing over the wall.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't be trying to create my own way in. And so I think out of that, particularly when you look at these 3 elements of God as creator, king, and ultimate authority, there's a few things that come out of this. So one is this: because God is creator of all things, I prudently choose the appropriate path he has created for me. So no matter the challenge individuals are facing, no matter how difficult their circumstances are or how good their circumstances are, there is a path that the Lord wants them to walk.
Yeah.
And it's a path that he wants to instill his wisdom and his knowledge to know how to walk that daily, to walk it prudently, right? And so what you see in the temple is the Lord says, I want you to come worship me, but you can't come however you want. There's a particular way I want you to walk, because by submitting to that, you're saying, I'm going to submit to the Lord as creator. Now, if he's creator, that means he's infinitely creative. And if he's infinitely creative, that no matter what I'm facing, there's a path he has for me here to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a path he wants me to walk. And so how do I walk that prudently? How do I discern and gain wisdom and knowledge and then put it into action so I can take the steps forward I need to walk? Because he's creator. He knew this was going to happen. This is the world he created. Every soul I interact with, he knows. And so because of that, he has the path for me to walk, just like he invites everybody to worship him. But you got to come through the gate. Yeah. There's a way to come through to him. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing is this. Because God is king, I prudently recognize that I come with nothing that he needs. Which is going to become critical when we see some things we're going to lay out in the next few episodes, because God doesn't, there were gods that people believed, well, you got to bring them food so that they can eat. And then if you feed them, then they'll be happy and then they'll give you blessings. This was a common pagan thought. God's like, I don't need anything from you. There is nothing you're bringing me I need. Why? Because I'm the king.
Yeah.
And so part of prudence is recognizing God doesn't need me.
Yeah.
And he needs nothing from me.
And I don't need to orchestrate my life to prove that he needs something from me.
Yeah. Or hoping that I'll gain some kind of approval from him. Or it's not about any of that. The Lord's going like, I don't need anything from you. Nonetheless, I'm inviting you into a relationship. I'm inviting you into a life with me that is of intimate nature. Well, I'm inviting you. I'm the king. You have nothing in your bank account. You have no gifts. You have no talents that I didn't already give you. Like you have nothing that you aren't going to bring me that I don't already have. Nonetheless, I'm inviting you. But I'm inviting you through this gate. Yeah. And then the third piece is, because God is the authority, I prudently observe his way of defining what it means to truly live. So I step through this gate because this is what worship looks like. Not because it's comfortable, not because it fits my theological notions of what I deem appropriate, not because, I see a bunch of other folks doing it and their lives seem to be going pretty well. No, I'm taking these steps because of the authority he has in my life, which means if nobody else does it, guess what? I'm still going to do it. Even if I don't feel it, guess what? I'm still going to do it. Even if theologically it's very fuzzy and vague and I don't always understand what's going on, I'm still going to step forward in orienting the whole of my life to truly live in worship of God. And I think when we choose to live that way, there is a tremendous amount. We were talking about before we record the importance of living with convictions. And how you said, I think that's your word. You really like that word.
Such a Milo Curtis word.
It's actually one that, I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but I sort of was reintroduced to it when in the Navy, I do this training called Warrior Toughness, where we talk about, what are your convictions? And when I teach it, one of the things I teach is like, what are the things you become convinced of? Yeah. Because the things you're convinced of shape your convinctions.
Which is an episode.
It is. It's a couple episodes.
It's the men's retreat.
Oh yeah, I preach a sermon and then we talk about it. That's right. So go back and look that up.
Find it. That's your challenge.
But this idea that I have to be convinced that God is creator. I have to be convinced, and I don't need God to convince me. He's already done enough to convince me. Do I hold that? Am I going to choose to believe that? Am I going to choose to be convinced? Am I going to choose to believe that he is the King of Kings? Yeah. Am I going to choose to believe that he is the ultimate authority?
And when you hold on to that he is the king, he is the creator, and he is the authority. And you hold on to that, God will continue to show that to you as you go forward.
It'll keep growing.
Versus it's like, I could just sit here and be like, okay, Lord, do another thing, do another miracle, do another thing. And you see that even in the New Testament, right? You have these people that's like, okay, Jesus, do one more thing. We've heard about you, do one more thing. He's like, okay, you've heard it.
Do another trick.
Yeah, he's like, you've heard it, bro.
Yeah, you know the truth. You don't need more power. You don't need more demonstration of power. What you have to step into is belief.
Yeah.
You have to step into, because this is not about a demonstration of power. This is about
your faith.
Returning to, righteousness is to be in right relationship. I'm inviting you back into what it means to be in right relationship. Now, how does all of this apply to us as Christians? We're reading an Old Testament passage. What did Jesus say he was?
The way, the truth,
the
and
way,
the
the truth, and the
life. And
life.
no one can come through me.
Nobody can come to the Father
except through me.
Yeah. And so
I am the way.
I am the way.
This is the gate to the tabernacle. There's no other way into the tabernacle except through the gate.
And so Jesus is going,
hey, bro.
Hey, this is, I know you're trying, some of you are getting out ladders and trying to figure out other ways over the gate or over the fence.
And trying to be clever about it.
You're trying to be clever and you're trying to be creative and you're trying to convince others that it's worth it. And you just need to stop, because there is a way and it's a good way, but it's going to require you to surrender. It's going to, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Nothing came to being that wasn't by him. What is John saying in that first chapter? He's saying God is the creator. Yeah. Jesus is the King of Kings. Jesus is the ultimate authority, right? So there's this foreshadowing that the tabernacle gives us of the life that we're to have in Christ that we can enter into. And so I don't get to go like, oh man, I really like the Judeo-Christian faith. I just don't want to have anything to do with Jesus. That'll get you so far. It'll give you to living a pretty good moral and I think admirable life. But I think it will keep you from developing intimacy with God. Yeah. It'll keep you from stepping into that relationship that the creator of the universe is longing to have for you. And so the question becomes, am I going to, what does it look like for me to practice prudence in this area? What does it mean for me to go, all right, because God is the creator of all things, I'm going to abandon a kind of a reckless wandering of figuring things out on my own. Yeah. Because he's my king, I am going to abandon putting my confidence in something, I'll kind of be into God, but I'm also going to have my finances, or I'm going to lean into these business practices, or I'm going to have these relationships, or I'm going to cultivate these skills and abilities and talent. It's like, no, I'm putting all of my confidence in him because he is the authority. He's the one I, look to for what right is, what it means to pursue a life worth living. That means I'm going to abandon kind of a fickleness, right? I'm going to let God sort of work that out of my heart. So I'm not giving into kind of thoughtless, what is the fad? What is the latest? What are other people doing? Like, I'm done with that. I'm stepping into the life that he has for me because I'm going to step through this gate. Isn't this great?
Yeah,
Olivia,
and I think
good idea to do all this.
I think like also when you're walking through the gate, you're reminded of who God is, right? And you look at these colors and you're reminded of all the provision, but it also puts you in check. And it says, if that's who God is, you need to identify who you are in relationship to him. You're not this person that's like, look, I wove that. Like, I'm a part of, and sure, God wants you to be a part of, his great work.
And that was a beautiful thing out of this. He he's like, where did Israel get all these things to build all this? Guess where they got
Amazon
it from?
Prime. No,
Prime days.
The threads came from heaven.
They had to wait
they wove it.
They had to wait till summer to be able to do it because they were like, hold on, if we wait a few more days, we'll be Prime days. We'll be able to get all this stuff. No, it's they got all of this. They got all of these natural resources from Egypt because as they were leaving, the Egyptians just gave them everything. Take our gold, take our precious things, take all of this stuff, take it, just get out of here.
And you'll see, we'll talk about it. There's certain things that the Lord uses to build the altar, to build the laver, to build the menorah and the lamps or the lampstand. And all these different elements have a different distinct purpose of it coming from Egypt and being redefined into what it looks like to worship God.
To be redeemed, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing with all this is that regardless of what has happened in our past, regardless of the mistakes we've made, regardless of what's happened to us, what's been done to us, the things perhaps we've done to others, the Lord can be like, got it. I want to take all of that. I want to take all of these things that you may look at and go like, is there any value to this anymore? And the Lord's going like, actually, I can gather all of this up and I can put this together in a way that leads to a life that worships me.
Yeah.
But there's an order to this. You don't get to determine what the design is.
Or the order looks like.
Or what the order looks like. And you don't get to skip orders. And we're going to walk through what those orders are, in the coming weeks.
But he invites us to be a part of that.
But he invites us, and he leveraged craftsmen.
Yeah.
And artisans. It specifically says
and it's
that.
not just priests who build this.
No,
like he's leveraging
it's carpenters,
all of these people.
and it's all of these skills and all of these abilities that.
Because that's what they were used to.
Yeah.
In Egypt. They were meant to build all these things for the Egyptians. They're not men of war. They're not soldiers. So literally their whole life, I guess, with the tabernacle is using the gifts that they're used to then redeem for the Lord's purpose.
I just finished my thesis paper for school, and I was diving into the Old Testament stuff for that, and I was telling your mom how I was refreshed on how prior to Israel going into Egypt, they were nomads. They didn't know how to build things, not at the scale that they ended up having to build in Egypt, and so their slavery, which was evil and wrong. But their ability to build and develop those skills and that craftsmanship, the Lord said, I can use all of that. I can, despite the context and how evil and wrong it was developed within, I can pull that out and I can make that something that becomes holy. What's interesting is years ago, I was in a seminary class and the professor was talking about how the word charosh, which is the Hebrew word for holy, at one time was a common word in this region of the world. But it was a word that was in reference to any religious activity. So it was, you could have holy prostitution, holy child sacrifice, right? Things that we would go like, there's nothing holy about all that. That's horrid. That's evil. Okay, God comes onto the scene and he tells Israel, I alone am holy. I am alone am charosh.
That's good.
What's interesting is over not too long of a period of time, all of the surrounding nations say, only God is charosh. And the instructor was saying, God not only redeems Israel, God not only redeems all of these things that Israel brought out of Egypt, God redeems a word that was once used to describe common religious activity. The Lord says, nope, I'm going to grab that word. That word is now mine. I alone am holy. I alone am charosh. And all the other nations, because of how they see God operate and the way they see Israel flourish and the way they see Israel worship, they go, yep, that's right. That word rightly belongs to him. We hope you've enjoyed this.
Dude, this was a fire episode.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun with this. We want to keep you up to date with what's going on. So if you are not subscribed to our newsletter, visit thisresilientsoul.com, sign up for our newsletter because we will push out updates about the podcast. A lot of all the notes that we shared today are going to be available online on our website. But then we also put it like a version to send as an email. Some new subscribers.
Yes, let's go through them.
Clint Nelson, Kevin Brandel, Alex Lee.
And Abby Gresham. You guys, shout out.
Thanks for signing up. We want you to sign up. We want to be able to read your name on the podcast and give you a shout out. So visit that website, thisresilientsoul.com. You'll see a button for the newsletter. You just fill that out and we'll get you plugged in with that. Second thing. Rate, review.
Yeah, there we go. You did. Scratch that. We'll cut that out. You can follow, rate, review this podcast. By doing that, you give us the traction that we need. We actually don't need that, but we'd like it.
Oh, we need it. I don't know. We don't need it.
We're lowly in heart.
Our existence is not being
We're
challenged.
humble.
Yeah.
We're trying to find the most prudent way for you to do do those things for us.
What we'd like though is what we find is that by people doing that, other folks end up seeing it.
Yeah.
And the more folks that see this and can benefit from it, ultimately that's what we want. We're doing this because we feel like it's what God put up on our heart, and we think it'll be benefit to those that could step into this.
Yeah. And if you guys have any suggestions or things that we can improve the quality of this podcast, let us know.
Yeah, we're always looking for ways to do that. You can email us hello@thisresilientsoul.com if you want to just talk about ways that we could partner with one another. If you want to send us a note, like Olivia said, to let us know what we could do better. We thank you guys for listening. We pray that you go with God and be at peace.